Today's question is, what do I think of alternatives? It's a great question. I think it's a two-part question. Number one would be defining alternatives. How do we define alternatives? And number two would be, how do you properly use them in a portfolio? Well, let's go back to number one and use how would we define them. And I think there's two different definitions out there. There's the definition that the retail client advisor would give, and there's the one that the endowments would give. And they're two totally different. When you start talking about the retail, typically what you're talking about is absolute return funds, long, shorts, and managed futures. There are a lot of people out there that don't believe that they've done very well lately. And I would sit there and say they've done exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Because after all, what are they? They're non-correlated assets, and they are low volatility. And typically a low volatility product is going to give you low returns. So what you've seen in a bull market since 2008, while traditional equities have gone up, your absolute return funds, which you guys are calling alts, have not moved very much. But where they're supposed to do well is they're supposed to do well in a down market. When the market goes down for a sustained period of time, they should hold up the investment, where the traditional equities won't. So they've done exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Now the question is, are you using them properly? And that gets us to part two. Part two is the endowment definition, because they do use theirs properly. They use theirs in a sleeve with other alternatives. And what are those other alternatives? When they define alternatives, they're talking about, yes, absolute return funds, managed futures, hedge funds, long shorts. But they're also taking into account real assets. These are your real estates, your energies, your oils, your commodities, so on and so forth. And then they also talk about private equity and venture capital as alternatives. And what they do quite well is they put those all together, and they build a proper allocation inside their alternative sleeve to give them better return and lower volatility. So what do I think of alternatives? I think they're terrific, and I think everybody should use them in their portfolio, but you should use them in the proper way. If you'd like to know more about the proper way, please get a hold of me and we can go through our research so that you can understand how you properly allocate alternatives to your portfolio. I hope you've enjoyed today's version of Asset Allocation TV. If you'd do me a favor, comment below on what you thought about the episode, and more importantly, subscribe. Every Wednesday, I will be posting another version of Asset Allocation TV.